Greetings. We are on our live stream today, and we're working a psalm spell together. And we are working on Psalm 119, Caph, and that's spelled C-A-P-H. And traditionally we use this to overcome persecution. So if you're feeling persecuted or you are being persecuted, this is a great psalm to turn to in those kinds of troubles. And the way we work a psalm spell is very simple and very powerful. We read it out loud all the way through once without stopping, and we call this an incantation. And then we go through, after the incantation's been performed, we go back through it, and we dig deeply into the psalm, one verse at a time, and we search for inner meanings of each verse. And by doing that, by just the digging itself and the contemplating and the searching, we through that we are planting those thought seeds deep into our minds, and those seeds, in a very real sense, take root and they grow and they bear fruit after their kind. And the more frequently you come back to the psalm, the more you condition your deep mind to whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. So, and we can do that today. All right, so here we go. Psalm 119, Caph. My soul fainteth for thy salvation, but I hope in thy word. Mine eyes fail for thy word, saying, when wilt thou comfort me? For I am become like a bottle in the smoke, yet do I not forget thy statutes. How many are the days of thy servant? When wilt thou execute judgment on them that persecute me? The proud have digged pits for me, which are not after thy law. All thy commandments are faithful. They persecute me wrongfully. Help thou me. They had almost consumed me upon the earth, but I forsook not thy precepts. Quicken me after thy loving kindness, so shall I keep thy testimonies of thy mouth. All right, so that's quite a psalm. All right, so here we go. We're going to look at these verse by verse. My soul fainteth for thy salvation, but I hope in thy word. Well, now we have to remember who we're talking to here. The Lord of the Psalms is the infinite principle of life itself. It's not a deity. It's nothing separate from us. It's the power that's beating our hearts this very instant. So my soul fainteth for thy salvation. Now, when your soul faints for the salvation of God, that means that it gives up everything else. It gives up everything else. It's completely 100% committed. It's surrendered to the salvation. It's all in. But I hope in thy word. I hope in thy word means I have faith in the will of God. That's the literal translation of how we interpret that phrase. I have faith in thy will. Mine eyes fail for thy word, saying, when wilt thou comfort me? Sometimes when we don't see evidence right away of that which we long, we can sometimes get the wrong idea. But if your eye fails for the will of God, that means that you're not seeing things yet as they really are. So that's a warning to not judge by appearances. When wilt thou comfort me? That's like when, always thinking in the future. When is it happening? Impatient. Well, in fact, it's happened already. It's happened now. It happened the moment that you needed it. And so it's a matter of you being able to open your eyes and see it properly. And that's one of the ways that we are asking for assistance, is by being able to see that the problem has already been solved, that the persecution is already gone. For I am become like a bottle in the smoke, yet do I not forget thy statutes. So there's if you're feeling like you are completely detached and separate from your Creator, detached and separate from help, then you forget that there is no time lag ultimately between what you need and the fulfillment of your desire, or the fulfillment of the solving of your problem. The only time is in the world, And remember that the world is just a projection. It's not, from God's point of view, there is no time. So yet I do not forget thy statutes. If you don't forget what are the statutes of God, first of all? It's remembering the qualities of God. Now, if you don't forget that, if you remember to think of the qualities of God, then what you're doing is you are changing your perception from one world to the next. And that's where you're no longer like the bottle and the smoke. You are then completely at one with the salvation that is yours. And so when you are at one with the salvation that is yours, then it appears right before you. It appears to appear before you, but it's already been there. But now you are letting it be. You are letting it manifest. How many are the days of thy servant when thou wilt execute judgment on them that persecute me? So how many are the days of thy servant? That's me, right? That's you. That's the person doing the psalm. How many are the days? When wilt thou execute judgment on them that persecute me? And how long is this going to take, dude? Is kind of what this is. How long is this going to take? How long until I'm over this? How long? And remember that the how long, that impatience is usually part of the problem. So when you are saying, when wilt thou execute judgment on them that persecute me? Remember that the first persecution is happening within your own mind. If you were not persecuting yourself on some level, you would not be allowing this to happen on some level too. Now again, we are not blaming the victim. We're not saying that you're not being persecuted, but we're saying that there's something in your mind that needs to be healed so that it's through that healing, it's through that part of your mind that God's will can rush through and deliver you from the circumstance. But it has to be delivered within the mind first. So not only do you want God's to execute judgment on the situation of persecution, but you also want God to execute judgment on those persecutors within your mind, that part of you that persecutes yourself. The proud have digged pits for me, which are not after thy law. Okay, so the proud can be those persecutors, right? In your three-dimensional world, but ultimately, what we work on with these psalms is the thought forms that produce the circumstances. So in that regard, the proud that have digged pits for you are those self-destructive thoughts, those thoughts within you that dig pits for you. This'll never work. You're not good enough. You're too old. Those kinds of thoughts. They're gonna get you. They're coming after you. There's no hope for you. You can't afford a lawyer. All of this stuff that goes through your head, right? Those are those proud thoughts digging pits for you, getting ready for your demise. And those are not after the law of God. God did not create persecution. God did not create lies. God did not create you going into a pit. So all of that stuff you're doing to yourself, or you're going into agreement. So now that you're coming to the psalm and we're doing some real magic, then you don't have to live in those realms anymore. So now you're going to not only overcome your own inner persecution, but as a result of that, you're going to overcome any results of that inner persecution, which is usually other people persecuting you. And again, don't think of this as like, oh, I did it to myself. I'm blame the victim. That's not what it is. We're just looking at where there is the law of correspondence. There's always a corresponding thought form with anything that's going on in your life. All thy commandments are faithful. They persecute me wrongfully. Help thou me. So all the commandments of God are faithful. Every single quality of God. Let's think of some. Infinite love. Infinite joy. The life principle. The infinite life. Divine truth. Perfect truth. Right? So it's just a few ideas of God. Those are what we talk about when we call those commandments. Commandments are simply the qualities of God that we must return to. And so all those things are faithful. And they persecute me wrongfully. Help thou me. Well, we just showed ourselves within that verse how to be helped. To turn our attention away from people that are persecuting us, turn our obsessive thoughts away from those who are persecuting us, and put them back on the qualities of God instead. They had almost consumed me upon earth, but I forsook not thy precepts. So we're talking about in the three-dimensional reality, we have almost succumbed to this persecution. But we did not forget to come back to these ideas. We did not forget to come back to the contemplation of those qualities of God, and therefore we are saved. Quicken me after thy loving kindness, so shall I keep the testimony of thy mouth. So quicken me after thy loving kindness. In other words, raise my vibrations up to that which is yours. So the loving vibrations of infinite love, we want that infinite love to raise and quicken our vibrations so that they vibrate at the same level as that love, rather than the lower level of persecution. So shall I keep the testimony of thy mouth. Now, what's testimony of thy mouth? Well, in a court of law, it's somebody's version of the truth that they are speaking under oath in order to figure out what really happened. But the testimonies of God, are always one. And that is that God loves you. God supports you. God didn't create anything but love. God did not create anything but life. God did not create any darkness, because God is infinite light. So any of those things that we are experiencing were not created by God. Therefore, we don't have to worry about them because they aren't ultimately real. And when we get back to those testimonies of God, then we become in alignment with that vibration, and that vibration heals and corrects all in its presence. And that's how it works. All right, well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for working with me today. This is a wonderful part of my day. I treasure it very much working with you, and I can't wait to work with you again.